Hello, welcome to week 4 of Press Play on your podcast. I hope things are going well so far. I feel like we've covered quite a bit already. There's still, I feel like we've covered several pieces that are like the one-time launch pieces that, again, seems like a little more in the beginning, but they are the things like you want to get set in place, like your cover art, choosing your music, your host platform. Um, yeah, those kind of things. Of course, your show title, your show description. I know we covered most all of that in last week's video. And of course, we talked about editing and production, recording, all of that stuff. So, yeah, I'm excited to see where you are with things. This week in this video, uh, I do not believe it will be that long, but we are going to be covering your trailer, which is like your episode 0, is what I like to tell my clients, and then your podcast intro and outro, which those are evergreen, which means they will be with your podcast all the time. Of course, you can always update them later, but they are a very consistent part of your show. People will hear at the beginning of your show and then at the end of your show. Those will be placed with the music. And then I know I did talk about your host platform last week. I'm going to go over that again just a little bit more as far as choosing that. Just some of those details on some of like the podcast information. Yeah, again, just want to make sure, just want to cover a little more of that in detail. And then I also want to touch on a show notes page for your website, depending on what kind of website you have. So I'm going to pull up my notes real quick. I'll be sharing my screen just a little bit. I don't think I will be too much for today, but I want to a little bit. So I first want to talk about your podcast intro and outro. These are important if you listen to podcasts regularly, which I'm guessing you do, or even if you don't too much. If you've ever listened to podcasts, which I'm sure you have, you've probably heard, the introduction to the show, which is normally um, the host introducing the show name, who they are, and that kind of thing. Normally for both your intro and outro, just kind of some best practices. And again, just like with anything I share, take these tips and tricks, like I said, my best, um, suggestions, that kind of thing, and use them, make it your own. You don't have to do like exactly what I tell you. Again, these are just kind of the best practices I've learned over time since working with multiple clients. And again, I've been an avid podcast listener for years. And so I always like to hear just shows I listen to for fun, for pleasure. Ones that I'm not working on, I always enjoy oh, maybe they're doing that. That's kind of a fun thing, or that's a cool thing. Like, oh, that's working well. And then of course share that with my clients. And again, things are always evolving in the podcasting space. But for your intro and outro, both, I always recommend they be anywhere. Again, this will be just a one-time recording. Again, whichever program you're using for recording your episodes, this is where you'll also record your intro and outro. And they will be separate. So we'll start with your intro. I would recommend it be anywhere from, I always think around like 30 seconds is ideal. And of course can be shorter. I would definitely keep it under a minute. I think if you go over a minute, that's just getting to be a little lengthy most of the time. Again, and this is something when you're working on any of these pieces, definitely share. I'd love to give you feedback if you're comfortable uploading them and sharing them in the group. I'd love to listen to them and give you any feedback. Because again, I know it's like kind of one of those things like you aren't always sure about. I found that since, with working with multiple clients over the years. But yeah, your intro is really just welcoming them to the show. Introducing yourself. Say like, welcome to the I'm just gonna use my name. Welcome to the Emily Gonzalez Show. I'm your host, Emily. You can say your first name, you can say your first and last name, whatever's comfortable. Um, you can just kind of say like who you're serving, what some of the topics you're going to be covering, kind of what your show is about. It doesn't have to be like really in depth. Just kind of, again, you want to think about when anybody lands on your show and if they start listening to an episode, that's the first thing they're going to hear. Like if they don't go listen to your trailer or look at like your show description or anything like that, if they just click on an episode, the intro is going to be the very first thing they hear. This is also what's going to be placed with music. So yeah, I always recommend, like I said, if there are any podcasts you listen to that you enjoy, definitely go and listen to their intro and outro. Hopefully they have one. If not, they definitely need to have one. So it's definitely not a piece that you want to skip. Like I said, it's definitely something you can tweak over time. But yeah, like I said, just welcoming them, however you talk, whatever sounds natural to you. You don't have to like copy exactly what someone else says. Just kind of again, I always recommend my clients, like if they're not quite sure, I share with them kind of like some of the things they can say. And then I'm like, hey, if you want to go listen to some shows that you like, kind of hear what, that host is saying, kind of what you like, you resonate with, and then bring that into your own show as well. So yeah, just welcoming them to the show, sharing your name, who you are, what they can expect to learn about, some of the topics, and you can say like, let's get into it, let's go. I'm excited to dive in, whatever is comfortable for you. And then that is what, like I said, your music will be playing in the background of your intro, and then that will fade right into your actual episode content. So that is the intro. And then the outro is fairly similar. Again, I always recommend around, like I said, 30 seconds. Again, I've had some clients, I know I have a couple that do like 20 seconds. I know one that has a little bit of a longer one. It's definitely closer to a minute. But anywhere around that 30-second time frame, I think is great. Again, just depending on what you're wanting to share. And the outro is really important as well. Both of these pieces are very important. The outro is very important because that is going to be like their call to action, which you should be giving throughout the show as well. You should be sharing your offers and not being afraid to sell and that kind of thing. But your outro is, again, I don't want to say people aren't always going to make it to the outro, but hopefully they are. And if they are, that's definitely where you want to just like thank them for listening to the show. A lot of times I recommend my clients sharing, like, to encourage their audience to leave a rating or review with, wherever they're listening to their podcast. You don't want to have too many call to actions in it. Honestly, 1 to 2, probably a couple is ideal after you like thank them and, encouraging them to follow or subscribe. The verbiage can be a little confusing. A lot of people just say subscribe. On Apple Podcasts, it's actually follow the show. It's not subscribe, which again, I know it's kind of nitpicky, but obviously just want to share the correct verbiage with you as well. So with Apple, if there's a show that you like, you'll actually follow it. You'll click like a little plus sign in your library, and it'll get added to your library. Or if you listen on like Spotify or any other kind of platform, you'll be subscribing to the show. So again, whatever you want to say, like, hey, thanks for listening. I'd love for you to follow the show, subscribe to the show wherever you're listening, and leave a rating and review if you feel called. And then that ending part is where I recommend saying, like, to check out, like, if you have this isn't a part where you should have like a one-time offer, like a limited time, like say if you have like a group program or coaching option or um something that's going to be a limited time. That is what you would want to talk about in your actual episode content, and then link in your show notes as well, in episode description and show notes. This is where I would definitely say, like, hey, come follow me on Instagram, or check out my website. Again, I wouldn't list all of those things, because again, you can still say a lot of that in your show, like toward the end as well. But I would just say, like I said, thank them for listening, follow, subscribe, leave a rating, again, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, what you want them to do. And then where you'd like to connect with them outside of your show, because that is huge. That is where obviously you want people listening to your podcast, you want to be connecting with them there, but you want to further that relationship outside of your podcast as well. That's the beauty of podcasting. So whether that's on Instagram, if you want them checking out your website, if you want them, if you do have like an evergreen, like a masterclass that's ongoing, if you have a Facebook group, something like that, a membership, that is the place to share that. And again, you always want to have all of that linked in you want to be saying that, so people are listening to that, but you also want to have it in your episode description and show notes as well, so people can actually, like, when they're listening to it, because a lot of times I'll be listening to something, and depending on what I'm doing, like if I'm driving, obviously I'm not going to scroll down and look at the show notes, but later I'll go back like, oh, hey, I want to make sure and find that link. So you definitely want to have all of that, in your, like I said, description and show notes as well. But yeah, so that is really, like I said, best practices for like your intro and outro. And like I said, whenever you are recording them, and if you get them recorded, I'd love for you to upload them and share them in the group. I'd love to listen to them. If you don't feel comfortable, if you don't want me to, that is totally fine as well. But I'm definitely happy to give feedback. Again, like I said, it does not need to sound like exactly like anybody else's. Those are just kind of some best practices. Like I said, I always, like I said, encourage my clients, like, hey, go listen to some shows that you really like and see what you resonate with. And then, like I said, make it your own, whatever sounds natural to you, and what your audience is going to resonate with. Because again, obviously you want to be authentic and real and yourself on your podcasts, because this is your podcast. So that is the intro and outro. If you have any questions as you're working on those, especially putting them with the music, I know I went over more of that in the editing and production episode. But again, if you have any questions, like I said, putting that when you are recording and putting it with your music, definitely let me know. I'm happy to, talk more about that in the group. And then as far as the trailer, I want to talk about that as well. I do recommend definitely having a trailer if possible, because the trailer is a great thing to have, because when you go to submit your show specifically to Apple Podcasts, you do have to have an episode already published on your host platform. And instead of, because like if you're going to be scheduling like I always recommend a trailer and then your first 3 episodes, the first 3 episodes will be scheduled for your launch date. Um, you have to have one already published. You can't just have them scheduled for Apple Podcasts to be able to approve your show. So a trailer is a great option to do. I always recommend for my clients to do this. So for a trailer, it'll be a little like kind of similar to your intro and outro, but it will be like I said, kind of just it's like you think of like a movie trailer that you see. Um, I feel like there are still a lot of trailers released for movies these days. I always recommend anywhere from like 2 to even 5 minutes. Most of my clients, I feel like, say anywhere around like that 2 to 3 minute range. Doesn't need to be lengthy at all. This is not going to have your intro and outro with it. This is just going to be you sharing, kind of, again, kind of welcoming them, like, I'm so glad you found this. My name is, Emily Gonzalez. Um, you can share a little bit of your story here, kind of what your podcast is going to be about, what, um, again, why you're starting your podcast, that kind of thing. Like I said, this is something that, and again, not everyone listens to a trailer, but like I said, some of the first few things people are going to see are, of course, your cover art. Some people might go check out your show description, but a lot of times people will actually, scroll and find an episode. And depending on how many episodes you have, if you're just getting started, most of the time they're probably going to listen to your trailer, which, like I said, like episode 0. So yeah, it doesn't need to be lengthy. But again, just a little bit, just a great way to introduce yourself and your show. Like I said, a little bit of backstory, like why you're starting your show, kind of what you're wanting to do with the show, who you're wanting to connect with. Again, kind of what they can expect. And again, just, thanking them for being here and like that you're excited, and that kind of thing. And again, like I said, just kind of like with the intro and outro, I definitely recommend going and listening to some if you can find. And if you need any recommendations, I can always share some with you as well. I've helped multiple clients with theirs. They all have trailers, and then I know there's a lot that I listen to as well that have trailers. So if you do need um, any more examples or ideas from that, I'm happy to share that with you. And again, it definitely, like I said, you'll be recording that. Like I said, it's just like episode 0 before you do like your launch episodes. And like I said, you do want to have that. I always recommend having your trailer published about a week before your launch date, which I will be checking in with you soon to make sure you do have your launch date set. That's something that definitely want to do like at the very beginning of the process, but I want to come back and check in with you about that and make sure you do have your launch date set since we're about halfway through this program now. So that is the trailer. And I always like to kind of with the music, whatever music you ended up choosing for your podcast. A lot of times I like to have the trailer playing or the music playing kind of softly in the background when you are talking. And if you don't want that, that's fine. I've had some clients in the past where I've only had it at the beginning and the end. They just wanted like just their audio content, just like a regular episode where there's not music playing in the background. I think again, it just kind of depend on the length of it as well if you want music playing the whole time. So that is something, again, I think that is definitely your preference, and there's not really a right or wrong way. And again, like I said, once you get it recorded, if you have it with music or not, feel free to upload, and I would love to listen to it. So that is your trailer. Like I said, definitely let me know if you have any questions when you're working on that. And then I know I did cover in the last video, last module about your host platform. I know I went over Buzzsprout and Captivate. Those are my go-tos. I did want to go back to that information just a little bit more. Again, I believe I covered most of this, but I wanted to make sure. So I am going to share my screen for that, there are a few things, and I will probably honestly do this again when on the lesson where we're going to be submitting your show as well, which will be like 2 weeks from now. So let me share my screen here. Okay. Hopefully you can see this okay. Okay, so I'm going to go to a Buzzsprout here. This is just one of my clients. So again, talked about Buzzsprout and Captivate. Like I said, those are my go-tos. Like I said, there are other ones. And for some reason, if there is another podcast host platform that you have heard about or checked into, definitely let me know, and I'm happy to get feedback as well. But these are definitely my go-tos. They're both really great. So I know we talked about uploading your podcast information, which, like I said, once you sign up for Buzzsprout, definitely make sure you are upgraded to a paid plan. Otherwise, you will lose anything you upload after 90 days. You definitely don't want that. You don't want your episodes going away. So make sure to upgrade. I believe it's usually like $12 a month if you're doing weekly episodes. So anyway, you can go to your podcast information. This is mainly what I wanted to go over with today. And again, I think I did this on the last one, but I just want to make sure, it all made sense. But you will have your title here, your your show title and then your description. And this is where you'll upload your cover art, your artwork. And then you want to make sure and choose your categories. Apple Podcasts goes off of, so like this category, she has health and fitness, fitness specifically for her primary category. So that is what Apple Podcasts will be showing when anyone finds her podcast on Apple. But you can choose up to two more, of course, that are related to your niche, your field of your podcast. A lot of people will do, like education or business or marketing. I have one client that has like kids and family as one of her categories. So depending on, again, what your podcast is going to be about. And again, if you have any questions, of course, let me know, but definitely want to make sure that first primary category is the one that's the most important one for sure. And of course, your language, your time zone, and whatever time zone you're in. Whenever we are normally, so I'm in Central Time Zone. I have a lot of clients who are in Eastern Time Zone. So normally I like whatever day their show is going out, I like to schedule it for like usually like 4 a.m. their time zone. A lot of them are Eastern, so a lot of times it's 4 a.m. Eastern. Like I said, I'm Central, so whatever. I feel like early morning hours are good. Just again, it's just kind of what your audience gets used to, especially if you're releasing weekly episodes, or like I said, even if you're doing bi-weekly, I would stick to that. And then, of course, your name. This is what will show up. Once in a while, someone will have just their first name, but I recommend having your first and last name. And then, of course, if you have any explicit material, just any of the topics, or if you ever have any like curse words or anything that you think would be categories, this, I would only mark this if it's going to be like consistently, because you can actually do that more in each episode specifically. You don't have to have it where this is like showing the whole podcast itself is explicit. We have hers that way because she does have a curse word in her actual show title. So again, that's not super common, just depends on your podcast. So yeah, that is the information. Again, you'll save that. And if you do make any updates, sometimes it can take up to 24 hours, especially in Apple Podcasts, to for that to be changed. So it won't always switch over right away. Like say if you have like a typo or something like that, and you go check it in Apple. I had that recently actually with a client, and it took just a few hours. I know it was less than 24 hours to update an Apple Podcasts. One thing you do want to do whenever we go to, which again I will be going to share this directories part when we're going to submit your show. That'll be in a separate module, separate video a couple weeks from now. But your RSS feed, yeah, this is your RSS feed, which you definitely will need to have when you are submitting. So like I said, I will go over that later. And this email verification, this is something that's helpful to have because some of the podcast platforms you do have to have it there. I know Spotify for sure does, and I know there's a couple of smaller ones as well. Honestly, usually just have it in your feed for 48 hours. You don't really need to keep it in there indefinitely, and you just add it to your feed. So again, that is just when you just want to make sure that is in there and saved, whichever email is associated with your account. That is one you want in there because again, it will be sending you emails kind of letting you know when your show is added and that kind of thing. So yeah, and then I actually do want to, because I don't believe I did this in one of the previous to be honest, I don't remember if I did in one of the previous videos or not, but to actually upload a new episode, I do want to show you that in the host platform. And again, I can show you this. Hang on, I'm going to stop my share real quick. And I honestly will probably go over that with you again when we are doing the steps to submit your show to the platforms, which again, a lot of it you can do from the back end of your host platform, whether it's Buzzsprout or Captivate or whatever, which is really nice. But I do just want to show you that. Let me share my screen again here real quick. Sorry, totally have a hair in my mouth. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Buzzsprout here real quick. So I'm just going to, might be a little challenging with hers, but I'm gonna see. So normally you would just upload a new episode, and then I'm going to go back in and edit so you can kind of see what it looks like. But this is where you would choose your audio file, your final episode audio. That's with your intro and outro music, editing's done, all of that. Your final audio, you would choose that. Buzzsprout for sure. I don't know if Captivate has it right now. I don't think they have anything quite like it, but Buzzsprout has an option called Co-host AI. It's really cool. It's not something you have to do. It will ask you initially when you're uploading like your first episode, like again, it'll be your trailer whenever you do that. But you can actually, it will give you, and it's a great AI tool. It'll give you episode title options, captions, the actual show notes, all of that kind of stuff. It's really it can give you options for like social media posts, anything like that, emails. It's really cool. I have a separate tool I use right now for when I'm working on my client shows that I really like, which I'll share in the module that I go over for like repurposing your podcast content from your episodes and sharing other places. So I will share that in another module. But anyway, that is what you would do to actually upload your episodes. I'm going to go back just to show you, and I'm just going to go in and there's an edit option. Again, this is already published, her episode. This is one published just earlier this week. So I'm just going to click edit. Or here, I'm going to show you real quick. This is what it looks like. So that's just kind of like the format of it, which hers is a little bit longer anyway. Yeah, so the co-host AI summary, like I said, it's a newer thing with all the AI tools. But just to edit, I'm just going to show you, I'm not going to edit anything with hers, but this is kind of what it looks like. These are some of the different title options. We didn't go with any of those, but a lot of times it can be helpful depending on my client. I have some who like to use those. Most of them, they usually don't do an exact AI title because again, it is AI. It's really helpful, but anyway, and then you just format your show notes here. I normally do mine in a Google Doc when I'm working on my client shows and I just copy it here. If you do want to do it actually in Buzzsprout, you can, whatever, your workflow is, whatever works best for you. And then, yeah, like I said, and I will be going, my module next week will actually be on show notes and just everything that goes into that. So I will be sharing more about like the format that I do for my client shows and that kind of thing. But this is where, like I said, you'll actually, once you once your audio file is uploaded, then it will take you, this will all be blank right here. And this is where you'll actually, again, put your episode description, your show notes, that kind of thing. And this is where, like I said, you want to share how to work with you, any of your links and resources, where to connect with you. Like she has her Instagram, um, her free Facebook group. She has that. That's grown a lot. That's a really big community for her now. She has like her Amazon store stuff. So yeah, anyway, that's kind of that's how it will look when you're actually uploading into, like, so this is Buzzsprout specifically. Captivate is very, very similar as well. Yeah, and like I said, I believe I went over kind of that in Captivate as well in the last module. But if you do end up going with Captivate or another host platform and you have questions, definitely let me know if you have any issues when you are getting to that step where you're uploading anything. And then this is the part where if you're not doing seasons, you don't need to mark that. Your episode artwork should stay the same. If you ever are doing like different graphics, you would upload those. I see that once in a while. I don't think there's like a huge like point for those or like a huge reason. Most of my clients, I don't have any clients where I do, it's always their cover art. So anyway, like I said, and then your season, like I said, if you're just doing ongoing episodes, you can just leave that blank. Excuse me, I normally like to, I used to put the episode number in here, but instead I actually like to put it up here in this title, and you can always format it differently. If you do it up here, it will show up numbered in Spotify, where if you just put it down here, it won't show up numbered. And I've definitely heard from feedback. I know for me personally, I like to see like the numbers if I'm looking for one specifically. And I've heard feedback from like clients, from people who listen to their shows, like, because I had a couple clients early on who we weren't doing that, and that's how I learned like, oh, that's how we need to like format it. So again, just one of those things. If you for some reason like in Apple Podcasts, you want to be careful. You want to make sure you don't put it here and up in the title, because otherwise it will show up twice. So just kind of little things you kind of learn over time, like, oh, hey, why is that showing up twice? So that's just my recommendation. I would just put it in the actual show title, or episode title. Some people will put it at the end. Again, there's a lot of back and forth with like SEO purposes and that kind of thing. I honestly don't think it's a huge deal at the beginning. That is what I do for all of my client shows, and they've had some great success and that kind of thing. But if you're ever like, hey, I don't really want my number at the beginning, I want like the actual, I want it to go right into the episode title, you can put it at the end, or you can put it down here at the bottom and it will still be numbered. It will still show up, I believe, in Apple. I know it won't in Spotify. And some of the other smaller players, I don't know if it will as well. I think it just depends. But like I said, I just think it's helpful having numbers because you can reference them, especially if you're ever referencing them in episodes or directing somebody there, like, hey, go listen to episode number. If they're not numbered, then they're gonna be like, what is she talking about? So again, just what I do with my clients, what I think is kind of a good practice to do. And then tags down here. These are definitely anything related to that particular episode title, any of the content in there. Great to add tags. And then that is where normally it will give you an option to schedule up here. you can either publish if you're wanting to publish it right then, which I recommend, especially once you get into it, definitely working ahead of time so you're not doing it last minute. But if you are, you can go ahead and publish it then. Or so like with this hers, I'm just going to save and update it. It would normally give you the option right here to publish it, and you would choose your date and time, and then it would be good to go. And then you can just go back to all episodes. And yeah, so that is, like I said, that is Buzzsprout. I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment. And then the one other thing I wanted to talk about is if you do have a website, I do recommend having full show notes on your website. I actually can show you, yeah, actually, let me show you one of my clients. I know I'm not sharing my screen right now. I have a couple clients right now who they are not doing that. They are doing the I'm doing more of just like the editing production, writing the show notes, and then they don't have them like actually posted on their website. I do recommend doing that. Um, just because anyone who lands on your website and at least having a podcast tab, you would basically just add a podcast page there, and you would just have it, you would just want to have it set up where any of your new episodes, you can actually put them there, which is really cool. They can be published there. So again, depending on what kind of website you use, um, WordPress, Showit, Squarespace, Kajabi. I've actually worked with all of those different ones now. The client I'll show you has WordPress. So I'm going to get it pulled up real quick before I share my screen, and then just to show you kind of what it looks like. Or actually, I'll just go into her Buzzsprout and click from there because you can actually put the link in your episode description, like full show notes, which is really nice. And people can go to your website, or like, so if anyone lands on your website, they could see you have a podcast, like, oh, that's really cool. I want to go listen to her podcast. So let me share my screen again one more time here. And this will be the last little part. Again, hopefully you're still seeing that. Okay. So again, I'm just going to go click on hers, most recent. So I just have like, we do complete show notes. I've done some where it'll be like full show notes here. Again, not everybody does this. It's just like with her, we usually have a little more episode that or a little more information that's covered, like any resources or links she mentions. We always have in the full show notes on her website. If she ever has like a guest, we have more of that on her website. So this is kind of what it looks like. So if you click on that, this will take us to her website. So yeah, so you can see she has a podcast page there. And hers, I will say, is a little different. This is something because there are multiple different websites, so it's not something I'm going to go and show like each specific one because it can be kind of different. Whatever website you have, whenever you're working through the process to add a podcast page to your website, when you get to that point, I'm happy to talk with you about actually like, because you can actually embed the episode from your host platform, like hers is Buzzsprout. You can embed that to where somebody, if they land on like your page on your website and they find your podcast page, they can actually start listening to the episode from your website, like from that particular show notes um, spot, which is really cool. So anyway, so hers kind of looks like this. We always have, this is just like her cover art up here. And then her title, and like she has WordPress. So hers is and I will be honest, it's a little funky compared to some of the others I've worked on. I didn't set it up. I'm just whoever did it. It was just a little different. So I'm used to it now, but it's a little funky. But yeah, this is where you can actually listen to. If you clicked here, you could actually listen to it. And she also has links to be able to listen here on Apple and Spotify. And then this is kind of what the show notes look like. So we just have a little more here. And then she has a few more links down here, and then we always have her show description as well. So that's kind of what it looks like as far as it's more of like a blog post format for like full show notes on your website. Again, I know a lot of people don't do that. I think it is still great to do if you're comfortable doing that. And if you feel like you have the capacity, I should say. If not, of course, make sure to include everything in your Buzzsprout, like in the episode description here. And I do want to say those terms, like people use episode description and show notes kind of like interchangeably. They're technically not the same thing, but honestly, like it's totally fine. You can say like, hey, these are my podcast show notes because they kind of are. It's just more of if you have like a full show notes page on your website. But like I said, I do recommend having something related to your podcast on your website, even if you're not posting every new episode there. Definitely have something there. Is really helpful. But yeah, so that's kind of what that looks like if you are doing it there. Otherwise, like I said, that is Buzzsprout. That's like I said, what that looks like to actually upload an episode. And I just wanted to go over, like I said, those categories and like I said, some of that backend information. Like I said, I believe I did in the last episode, but I want to make sure that you understand that. And I think that is it for this video. Yeah, like I said, so like I said, you definitely I'd love for you to be working on your intro and outro, get those recorded, and your trailer, because again, those won't take very long. They are more like one-time things. Then and like I said, I want to make sure you have your host platform chosen. Like I said, I will be checking in with you soon just to see where you are. And I know I mentioned this earlier, but I want to make sure you have your launch date set as well. And definitely know your first 3 episode topics. If you haven't recorded them yet, you definitely want to be recording them soon just because it will take time to actually, once you do record them, edit them, produce them, write your content that goes along with them and that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm excited though. Like I said, this is pretty much the halfway point. I know some of this can be a lot. So definitely, like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to post in the group and reach out. Like I said, I'd love to hear any of any of the content that you're putting together, any of your deliverables so far. I'd love to. Like I said, I love all things podcasting, so I'm happy to give feedback if you need it. And yeah, just let me know where you are with things. I will be checking in with you soon. And like I said, if you have questions about anything that I've covered in this video or anything so far, definitely let me know. But I will talk to you soon. And yeah, I'm excited for you.